Hello.
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 Can you hear me, Francesco?
Yes, absolutely.
So I've got you on screen. I've got you on screen and also David
Yes.
Garelli.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
All right. Well, I can see you guys. The reason why I don't want a visual because I want to have to be looking at the screen all the time, and I've
Okay.
got some chicken in front of me too. So uh,
Okay.
I've got
Not
some
a problem,
chicken
sir.
and a glass of wine.
Real honor to talking with you. And so let's talking about your big career. Uh, let's start from the beginning
Okay.
about your studying and your passion about comics.
Okay. My studies. Well, I never went to art school. I always loved drawing, and I started drawing comics when I was in what we call secondary school
Mhm.
here in England, which is like high school
Yes.
in America and whatever you call it in where you are. Um, so I I just started drawing comics in secondary school. I wanted to go to art school, but in England, when I was growing up, we had a very poor careers officer system. So I was not advised that there was a certain particular point in the year when you had to join art school. You might have a qualification in art, but you had to apply to art school at a certain time of the year, and if you missed that, it was you're in trouble because that meant that you couldn't apply until the next year. And so what happened was that my mother, who was really great, she realized I was an unrealized talent that needed a break. So she managed to get me a job as a trainee commercial artist in an advertising art studio. So I began as a kind of trainee. I was a kind of trainee artist learning how to do art in commercial practice in advertising. But what that was, you were a messenger.
Mhm.
This is a sort of thing that operated in America too. You joined a studio and you were what they called a gopher. So you went off and you delivered artwork to advertising agencies, and also you were a dog's body in the studio too. So you made the tea and stuff like that. But at the same time, you were learning how to draw from the people who ran the studio, and maybe from some of the other guys in the studio. Um, but this wasn't actually perfect because the people who were supposed to teach me were too uh, elsewhere concerned with running the studio. So I don't think I got the right training, but I did learn enough. And what I was doing during this period, which is like when I was after when I was about 16, in this studio in the middle of London. What I was doing during the lunch hours, I was drawing comics because that's what I really wanted to do. And at home, I was drawing comics. So that was my big thing. My big thing was drawing comics. But I was learning some of the craft of of learning uh, how to draw, in the studio, or learning how to draw better in the studio. But I was practicing and practicing comics. But I think it was really good that I learned in that studio because the thing about advertising art is it teaches you how to draw things to make people want to buy them.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, when you're selling a story in comics, or when you're using art to get people attracted to a story, it means that you're learning how to sell it to them, and that's basically what when you're telling a story, you want people to believe it. You're selling it to them, you know. It's the art of conviction. If they don't believe what you're telling them, they're not going to believe it, and it's not going to be as effective. So it was, I think it was a good thing that I was learning in the advertising context. And well, I don't know how far you want me to go into this, but when I was at the studio, I always wanted to do comics. I was looking for outputs where I could do comics, and I created my own newspaper strips, my own characters for newspaper strips, and I tried to sell them to a syndication agency in Europe, and I got a very good reaction from that initial submission, which turned out to be not such a good response afterwards. I won't go into detail, but the point is that I was given a very, when they saw my samples, first of all, there was a great enthusiasm. And then I guess somebody else in the company looked and said, "Oh yeah, okay, but we really don't have the space for this anymore at this time." So I got one of those letters back that said, "Well, thank you for showing me the stuff, blah 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 blah." But by that time, I'd actually left the studio that I was working in because I was so impressed with the possibilities of things. So I just left. I left on the strength of that. So there I am without a full-time job, and so I have to find part-time jobs. So I was working. This is a long story, but you wanted to know it, so so I'm giving it to you.
Yeah, yeah. No problem.
So, so uh, after that leaving a full-time job, and I never wanted to go back to a full-time job. That's the important thing. I never wanted to go back to a 9 to 5. I like the idea of that freedom of being maybe a freelancer. But I needed money, so I was doing two part-time jobs for 4 years. 2 years I worked in the cabinet makers, which is where they do woodworking and stuff like that. And another 2 years I was working as a painter and decorator in a department store. So that was for 2 years. And during that time I was doing more stuff, doing more samples and sending them off. And in 1977, I got a great job of illustrating a kind of storybook annual of Logan's Run, the TV show. I'm sure you remember the Logan's Run TV show. And I was asked to do samples for that, and they were very well received. And in fact, when I look back on that, that still looks good stuff now, which is, you know, and if you have a bunch of samples that are really good, that means that you can use those to build a career. Because if you don't have that solid bunch of samples that will show you what your potential is, you can't really start a career in comics. So effectively, that was the beginning of my career in comics. And from there, from Logan's Run, I went on to do stuff for TV Comic, which was a weekly comic that had stuff. And then from there, and well, so that was it. So that's it. That's how I got where I am. And then carried on.
Sir, first of all,
David, hi.
thank you so much for your time. And my question is this: what it's like collaborating and creating V for Vendetta?
What was it like
Ah,
creating? Well,
mm,
it was very good. It's.
because
I think
it's
you
one
probably
of
want me to answer that in greater depth. Uh, what was it like? Okay. Well, I'll tell you how it came about. Because uh, the editor that I used to work with at Marvel UK,
Mhm.
who I'd done Doctor Who comics with, left Marvel UK and set up his own independent magazine, a magazine called Warrior. And he wanted me to create a character that I had done successfully for Marvel UK called Night Raven. Night Raven is a masked vigilante crime fighter who the basic character was like he worked in Prohibition America. He came out and fought. He came out from the shadows and fought gangsters. That's basically what this character was. And he used to brand people. You know, he had a sort of like a brand in his hand. So he would brand those villains that he managed to defeat or kill. And this character, Night Raven, was something that I had visualized and had become very successful for Marvel UK. So when Warrior was initiated, he wanted me to do a similar character. So he said to me, "Look, I want a masked vigilante crime fighter character um, for Warrior that's a bit like Night Raven." And at the time, he said, "You can write and draw it." And I thought, well, that's great. That's like, being given the gift. But I knew this great writer called AlanMoore at the time, who I'd worked with at Doctor who was brilliant, and I got on very well with. And I knew that it would be a better strip if I got Alan to be involved with it. So I asked Alan if he wanted to help with it, and he said, "Yeah, okay, that's great, let's do it." And at the time, he was also actually working with on Warrior anyway because he wanted to reinstate this old British character called Marvel Man. So he wanted to update the character, and so he produced. He was actually working on Warrior at the time, so he was already involved with Warrior. So, right. So we created this concept, V for Vendetta, which was basically about a future England, which was a fascist dictatorship, and it had come about through nuclear warfare, blah blah blah. That's basically the plot. It was about an England that was under threat and needed a strong man to take over. Didn't want a strong man, but needed a strong man, or thought it needed a strong man. And so that's the situation we were at. And this concept was about a future fascist state that was acting exactly like fascist states do, which is they scapegoat the weak and they're racist. So all dissidents and non-whites are put in jail or in concentration camps. Basically what we created was a copy of Nazi Germany. In fact, if you look at it's basically Nazi Germany in another form. That's basically what we did. And the main character was going to be somebody who escaped from one of these camps, who had been experimented on in the same way that Mengele did in the Nazi concentration camps, and is a kind of homicidal maniac who vows vengeance on the government that put him there and the people that actually put him in this situation. But but all we had was this ordinary guy, an ordinary guy who was this escapee of a concentration camp. But an ordinary guy doesn't have exactly the quality or the look of something that should be theatrical and adventurous and more attractive as a character. So we had to sort of think about what is our character's deeper motives? What's his emotional context? What's he going to look like? And And what's he going to wear? You know, is he going to have some costume? Because it was like we were thinking in terms of sort of a basically conventional adventure strip character, because we had no other thoughts. You know, we were doing something for a new magazine. We wanted it to be successful. We wanted the idea and the series to be successful, but we were thinking in conventional terms. So I came up with a few designs. Nothing really worked. And then one summer's afternoon, and I don't know why this happened. I have no idea where this came from. But one summer's afternoon, I was thinking about the concept, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we make him a kind of resurrection of Guy Fawkes? Now, I don't know where that came from. It was, I'm sure you know all this stuff, that November the 5th is where we celebrate Guy Fawkes. That's, we set off fireworks and all that stuff. I'm sure you guys know all about that. But this was nowhere near that time. It was in the middle of summer, so I don't know why I was thinking of it. But I thought that would be a great idea. And the more I thought about it, the more effective it became as a concept, because this character who has escaped the concentration camp is going to be a revolutionary. What if we make him a revolutionary, a resurrection of a revolutionary who, in 1605, as a failed revolutionary, failed, but this time he succeeds. He tried to blow up the House of Parliament, but this time he does. It all actually fit into a very good concept. And I thought it was a great idea, and I suggested it to Alan, and Alan said, "Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Let's do that." So that is where Guy Fawkes came from, and so we have a character who is a kind of homicidal maniac who needs some persona to actually guide him to what he wants to do, and a kind of path, a kind of mission, and we gave it to him. We gave him this crazy idea of him adopting the persona of a failed revolutionary to become a successful revolutionary, and and that's basically how that happened. And that's exactly all I can tell you about that, and how that actually the genesis of the.
This is incredible because he's such an important character, and he's such an iconic visually uh, character. Do you think that is still important today? Because I think that the themes of V for Vendetta are really really fresh today, even in these weeks. So you think that is still important today?
You know it is. You
Exactly.
really need to tell me that. You really need to ask me that.
Yeah.
But I,
Yeah.
but I tell you, of course, we're in the age of Trump, which is an
Yeah.
extraordinary. We're in a world that is like none of us ever really believed was possible. Yeah, where the Constitution of the United States has been thrown out of the window
Yeah. Yeah.
by basically an insane person who the Republicans support because they can't do it otherwise. They're all enthralled to their audiences and their states, and they've thrown their lot in, um, with this crazy person, and they can't go back now.
Yeah.
They're in that bad situation.
Hmm.
But before Trump, before Trump, if we consider that V first appeared in the early 80s, there's always a dictatorship somewhere, man. They're all over the place. If it wasn't Trump, if there's somebody else,
Yeah. Somebody
there's some
else.
other guy
Yes.
somewhere. in
Yes.
some nation telling
Yeah.
people what to do. Um, I mean, there's Russia. There was, I mean, this is a kind of this is this is the this is the world that the ordinary person, the ordinary voter has to live with and has to try and be educated about. Um, in a sense, if a dictator exists in a country that is poor without education, in a sense you can understand it because the voter has no information source. They have nothing to guide them to what is the truth. Um, but in a democracy where information is freely available, um, it shouldn't be the case that anybody with authoritarian attitudes should exist, especially even and not even be in power. But unfortunately, it's the internet that has actually given us this situation now, uh, where where we imagined that widespread information would actually help people and inform them more. But now it's become corrupted because when you give people lots of information, you can also give them lots of misinformation. And that's the world we're living in now. So the all those countries which were um, democratic because the public was informed are not. It's not that simple anymore because the public are not only informed but they're misinformed. So that simple equation of, well, if you want a democracy, you educate your people so that they know the difference between cream and crap. You know the difference between a good guy and a bad guy, and who's selling you bullshit and who isn't selling you bullshit. You know, that's what we do. We educate the public. We have a constitution, and that all works until you have an unregulated information system where anybody can tell them anything and they can believe it, which means that you can trade in lies without any question. And this is basically what happened in Hitler's Germany too. All the means of information were corrupted. You could tell everybody that the Jews were the source of all the problems because you were in charge of the power, right? Now we have a situation where the it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who owns the propaganda in the same way that Fox does in the US. They own the propaganda to a degree with Murdoch and all his pals, but that's not enough. You have the internet, which anybody can tell anything or say anything there. So those terrible propaganda means of power are now overtaken by uh, by misinformation. You have Truth Social. There are people who actually tune in to Truth Social, which is Trump's thing, and that's all they see. And so if you have all the people that love Trump watching Fox, and then their only social media outlet is True Social, there's nowhere for anybody to go because that's what they watch.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, you can't talk to them. You can't talk to them. If you say, why don't you try watching this? No, 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 no. I was told by True Social that they tell lies, which is actually the opposite of the truth. That's where we are. And and so V for Vendetta is more relevant now because the means of distribution of the truth are so totally corrupted that we're in that world. And I don't know how you get out of it. Can you imagine? Can you think of a way of getting out of it?
No, no. I think it's getting worse. I, I I don't think there is an easy way out of this kind of situation. I
No,
don't think so.
no, I don't know either. And
Yeah,
you know, I think I think I think if we could think of a way, um, it would be very good. But
yeah,
I can't think. And I must say, sometimes people express to me at various places an optimistic viewpoint of the future. Um, and I sort of like I always ask, well, why are you so optimistic? What gives you some reason to believe in an optimistic future when all the means of power and influence are held by billionaires who have no reason to do anything other than maintain the
yeah,
status quo?
yeah.
How are you gonna get out of that? Have you got any ideas?
Absolutely. No. Even talking about the importance of this work of yours in particular, even the mask of Guy Fawkes become a legend on the beginning of internet era, the anonymous movement, all the kind of stuff. So you made history on this. Is really important before Vendetta today. So even your reaction when you know that the anonymous have the Viper
Mask.
Vendetta Guy Fawkes mask. What do you think?
Well, I think you know they're using that as a symbol
Yeah,
of what they're trying to do. They're trying
yeah,
to bust the establishment.
yeah,
They're trying to bust the establishment and do the best they can. I mean, uh, I think lots of organizations have used that mask.
yeah,
I mean, the it's very difficult to um, to encapsulate uh, the complete meaning of that mask because it's been
yeah,
used in different ways.
yeah,
It can be used by anyone as a protest against some tyranny. It may be a tyranny that they've perceived, but it's their choice to use it. I mean, the
yeah,
value of that mask is it's neutral. It's not
yeah, yeah,
specifically a protest against a fascist state or a communist state or whatever. I mean, it's been used in different forms. In fact, I saw a picture of a guy wearing it um, when the Capitol in Washington was attacked
yeah.
on
Ah,
January the
yeah,
6th, which
yeah,
is extraordinary. I mean, uh, but that's because that person was wearing it because he somehow thought that was a protest
yeah,
against what he perceived was the tyranny of
yeah,
of that he understood at the time. Okay, well that's fair enough, and it's been used in the Arab Spring
yeah,
when when people were protesting against that tyranny there at that particular place. And an anonymous using it in another way themselves. I mean, they're a kind of anarchistic organization which is doing the best to try and change things. And you know, you may disagree with the means that they're using and their attitude and their approach, but at least they're trying to change things. And that mask is symbolizing that protest. A protest against a tyranny, and basically nobody would have to use that mask if we didn't have all these tyrannies that we have to face all the time.
Yeah,
And that's the answer. I mean, the sad thing about the mask, and there was a period when it was very ubiquitous. It was everywhere, um, and uh, and I love to see it wherever it was happening. I don't know whether that's going to continue. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I actually saw it being used. I mean, I see symbols of it everywhere. People are always posting me these images.
yeah,
It's sometimes used as graffiti. You know, I can see it used
yeah.
as graffiti in
A lot of
Spain or
graffiti. Yeah,
somewhere else, and that's great. Whether it will mean anything or what,
yeah,
the thing is, the sad thing is that mask is merely just a symbol of people's wants and desires, and people are wearing it in the protests in order to protest, and it's whether they get it or not. It's an important thing, you know, protesting and wanting, yeah, expressing these desires is important, but it's whether they get it or not, and I think that's a big problem now. You know, the means of us getting that, the means, you can protest as much as you like, but when the means of power are constantly reinforced by power structures that don't care, have no desire for morality or doing the right thing because they're not making money out of it. That's the thing. The people in power now are only interested in making money out of things. And if they can't make money out of it, they're not going to be doing anything about it. Uh, it's it's just kind of really sad, and I don't know how we're gonna get out of this situation. It's like I was saying to you before. I mean, you know, what is the route out of the situation? And I can't think of one.
but I think that if this kind of movements or people choose to use that kind of visual symbol of all the symbol in all the human history, in all the culture, is I think the biggest badge of honor of your work, your incredible work, and how much is relevant and political today. So I don't think any example like this. There
No,
is only you, Mr. Moore, V for Vendetta, because it's incredible how much the culture, an event become political, and it's really the testament of how the art can literally change something, and is a is a big example. This one, so
yeah,
incredible.
but how do we make it more? That's uh,
Yeah, yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
thing. I mean, I don't,
That's
I
the
don't.
beginning. That's the beginning. Yeah, yeah,
Well, yeah, if it was the beginning, I mean, if you look at okay, if you look at the actual story of V for Vendetta, it's not V that does it.
yeah,
V is
exactly.
merely, V
Yeah,
is actually initiates, is a
yeah,
catalyst.
yeah,
The people have to do it.
yeah,
The people have to change it. And in V's world, there is a limit of information technology, which allows V, the character, to undermine it.
yeah,
But when the information technology is so widespread as to influence and disable um, so many of the masses from believing that there is some real truth other than the untruths that they're fed, the whole situation becomes too complex to actually make a some kind of new scenario about. It's an extremely complex situation. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Iran right now, Iran has shut down the internet completely,
Yeah.
so that nobody, basically, you could say that nobody knows anything. They shut down the means of information. They've shut down the internet. Um, and in fact, they've managed to control their population through that in a meaningful manner. I mean, they've maintained their tyranny over like decades through that. They have complete control over everything, and maybe Putin does too. I mean, I'm not sure about how much influence he has on the internet and the control of that. But in Iran, they can just shut down everything so nobody knows, and it's all how people can sort of access, I don't know, dark web or whatever. I don't know how they get through, but if you shut down the internet, you can't do anything. So I don't know. But if we have a new situation where the possibility of any kind of empowerment of the people um, is possible, it's going to be a situation in which the internet can be freed, and information can get through. But then when you let information through, you're also letting disinformation through at exactly the same time. How do you fix all that? I mean, that's I think that's our biggest challenge from a political point of view and a cultural point of view now throughout the world. How are we going to actually maintain any kind of future for democracy when the people in power only have to press a button and they have controlled everything? How do you do that?
Impossible question.
Well, it is that is, but I mean, once you ask that question, you have to try and think about answers to
Yeah,
it. I mean, it's
yeah.
like we should. I mean,
We,
that's what we should all be
exactly.
thinking
We
about,
should. We should.
Yeah,
Maybe we
all
have.
those guys,
Maybe we
all
have.
those guys, all those guys with AI now, all those guys, showing us how to, I don't know, make funny characters out of ordinary people. They should be thinking, well, wait a minute, I should be spending my time trying to actually, figure out a means for the ordinary person to actually be in control of his situation and what he can tune into instead of being lied to. Maybe there's somebody doing that. Hopefully there is.
Uh, We hope.
Sir, I just a question about movie because we know V for Vendetta was adapted in a live action. What do you think about of the adaptation of the V for Vendetta and also Hellblazer? Because you have work also on Hellblazer, Constantine. What do you
Right.
think?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know anything about the Constantine thing at all. Um, uh, I like the character of Constantine, and I like depicting it when I was asked to do with Hellblazer and Horrorist and every story I've asked been to do with Constantine, I've really enjoyed. Um, and I like the character. I like his nihilistic attitude. I like the whole thing. I haven't seen any of the stuff that's been done. I'm not on Netflix. I don't subscribe to any of that stuff, so I haven't seen any of the consoles, and I haven't seen. I think I saw Keanu Reeves Constantine,
Yep.
which was, I mean, just not worth bothering with because it's not, if you're not going to try and do the character the way he is,
Yeah.
then don't bother. You're just
Yeah,
doing
don't bother.
something that is like,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
forget it. And so I have no viewpoint on that. And if I had some investment in it, if I created the character or helped to create the character, I would have felt differently. But as it was, it's just put it down to Hollywood and TV studios who don't know what they're doing. And what can you say? As far as V is concerned, the movie was produced and written by people who were big fans from way back, and the Wachowskis wanted to put their own view on it and see it from their viewpoint, and that's why they did what they did. Um, and uh, and they made a great movie of it, and they didn't divert too much from the basic concept of it. And the core of the movie is still the core of the series itself, which is the girl, which is Valerie Page, and her fight for individuality. And that's the core of the whole series anyway. It's the individual. Don't follow tribes. If you've got to have the integrity of yourself. If you don't have that, you're lost. Because if you throw your lot in with the tribe, because it's comfortable, then you're finished. In fact, that's the secret of democracy itself. You know, you have to be true to what you believe in and not follow people because you think you should follow those people. You have to be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, then you you are going to vote for the people you believe in. It's very difficult to do in any political situation, um, but you have to do it. Otherwise, you're just part of the tribe. And if you're part of the tribe, you know, you're not you. You have to be true to the integrity of yourself, and that's the core of the and the core of the movie is the same. I mean, uh, and I just think they did a great job with it. It's not a perfect job because a perfect job would have been a complete adaptation of the original with some editing. Um, but I'm just glad that the Wachowskis took it on. And in fact, um, it may not have been as good as it is if uh, if the Wachowskis had not made The Matrix. They wrote the first screenplay, the first good screenplay. There was a bad one before it. There was the first good screenplay. They wrote the first good screenplay, which was not perfect, but it was good before they made The Matrix. And having made The Matrix, they gave them much more power. So when they came back to working on V, they were not only the writers who Joel Silver had kept back on, but they were the producers as well, which gave them enormous power, which meant that they could do exactly what they wanted to do. So that's why the movie is as good as it is. It's not perfect, of course, but it's very good, and I'm just very glad that they were involved, and uh, the movie is also responsible for selling lots and lots of copies of V for Vendetta,
Yeah.
which means that people who go and see the movie actually get to see the original as well. So they see the copy, which has, as I say, has these imperfections, but they see the original and also makes lots of royalties. So for me, so yeah, that's good. But
Yeah.
the movie is a very good stab at at what Vendetta is about, and importantly, very importantly, the message of V, which is important, very important. as we've been talking about, for anyone
Mm.
living in what they hope should be a democratic uh, world, that message got out to the whole world. That got out further than I mean, the graphic novel was published everywhere before, but the movie went to every four corners and did great.
We talk about the adaptation of a comics with Mr. Higgins with Watchmen, and maybe you know him. Sure, sure. You
Oh,
know
John
him.
Higgins. All right. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, John. And we
Yes,
talk
he's a great
with
guy.
yeah, great, 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 great one. And talk about the same thing about the adaptation of Watchmen
Right.
of Zack Snyder, and even with Mr. Steven Bissett, we talk with Swamp Thing. And
All
the
right.
same thing, yeah. Maybe you know that.
I know Stephen and I know John. I don't see Stephen much, but I always see John popping up at some convention or on the
Yeah,
way to some convention somewhere. Yeah.
yeah. And talking about more about the technical stuff about your job. When you approach a complex script, what is the first visual element that you focus on? The first thing that you say, okay, now I have to start from here, and then
Well, the first thing in any story is that you is the style and subject of the story. That's the
yeah,
important thing. That's why you choose a different style for a subject.
yeah,
So if you're doing something like if I was asked to do, which I'm not likely to be asked to do, an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, I would not be drawing that in the same style as V for Vendetta. Okay,
yeah,
that's a sort of given.
yeah.
And then beyond that, it's about and that's it. It's what's your subject and what's your style and what style how would you draw it in order to accentuate the value of it and what it's saying and the world that it's in and stuff like that. And that's what you do. And I think I mean, I haven't the sorts of stories I've done because I'm attracted to sort of dramatic stuff. I've never been asked to do anything comedic or light flavored in its light in its flavor. But if I had, I've done some cartoony stuff,
Mhm.
and it's worked pretty well. Um, uh, I mean, for instance, I worked on Wasteland, an anthology for DC, which had lots of kind of crazy stories in it. And I did some cartoony stuff in that, and it worked because you're telling the story and it does the job. And so you just approach it from what do you need to do? What does this need? How do you need to tell this story? And that's what you go from. I mean, sometimes you have an idea that doesn't work out quite the way you wanted it to because when I did the Horrorist, which is the Hellblazer story with Jamie, I painted it all in watercolors, but I wanted not to use black so much because I thought I had the idea that the colors would the only the color would actually make the atmosphere. And if you use black all the time, it would undermine that concept. Um, and it worked, but when I look at it, I think that if I'd used more black, it would have given it more white as a kind of as a dramatic subject. But it still works. But that's the only thing I look back on. You make these judgments, but the judgment works. But the point, when you think back on it, you think, yeah, I should use more black because it would have been given it more white. but the concept still worked. Um, and but that's just something you decide at the beginning of something, and so that's about it. It's about the style and stuff. It's about the subject and the style you're going to use to tell it. Um, and I don't deviate from that very much. The only I think with also with the Constantine thing though, I did when I did the Grant Morrison story uh, with Hellblazer. I was interested in using pen felt tips for everything. So I decided I would use felt tips for everything. Still gave me the structure. It still gave me exactly the atmosphere I wanted. But I just felt um, that I wanted to use felt tips all through it, and so I did, and it worked. It was good. But the thing is this is the important thing for me. Um, Art's got to be an adventure, right? If you can't change, if you're stuck doing the same style forever, and uh, or drawing the same way forever, that's like a living death. That's like a living
Yeah,
death. You absolutely have to have adventure in art, and and I've been lucky that I can have that. If I want to, I can change the way I do something. Because if you have a reputation, people will trust you to do that, you know. Um, but art's got to be an adventure, and if every day you were getting up, and I know that the industry itself, the comics industry, is full of people who had to make a living from it every single day, and were working on sort of like books that needed to be produced at a certain time, and they couldn't afford to play around or you know use this style on this thing or this style on that thing because they couldn't do it. Um and and if they felt that they wanted to bust out, I feel sorry for them, but you have to, if you are in a position where you can change things a little, it'll make you happier as an artist because otherwise you're stuck. You're stuck.
yeah,
You don't want to be, you know. Some people have to do the same thing all the time because it's their job, and well, it's like any job, really, any job. I'm really lucky. I managed to turn a love of a certain thing into something that I made a living out of. I am extremely lucky. I am very lucky, you know. But within that framework of luck, I have to be happy,
yeah,
and I have to, I've got to be able to explore when I can explore, and so that's it's really important. Art is an adventure, and comics are not some separate thing. Comics are art,
yeah,
and they should be art in all the ways they can be, and produced by all the great people that are in that do it.
yeah. Mm. The same
A very
thing.
long answer to a question about stuff.
Yeah, no, but it's not important. It's beautiful to have that kind of conversation because you always learn from this, especially us that that were here in first person to listen to your questions. So don't worry, it's amazing to have you here, and thanks again, really. But yeah, as you say, you can do the same thing forever because even the process itself of creating involve trying different things. If not, it's not called creating. It's a stamp with the same thing forever. It's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
machine. It's not you are not creating anything. You always made the same thing. But creating, doing art, especially as you drawing, is that kind of involve this kind of type of work. And so this is amazing. And talking about this, do you ever on your career, not especially on one work, have to redraw a page or something that you say, no, this is not good. I have to done again.
Oh, have I had something that I done that I didn't want or didn't like anymore?
Yeah, yeah, that you have to say, yeah, I have to done again. Yeah, it's not this thing is not good. I have to redraw it.
You mean a whole book or a
No,
whole?
no, only on no, not a whole book. No, no, only one page,
Oh God,
one
yeah,
thing.
of course. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
I look back on some of the early stuff in V, and it's not as good as it should be. But
No, it's not possible.
that's only because you learn,
Yeah,
and also because it evolves. Okay. This is actually it's quite complicated. This. Um, okay. I think okay. This is actually quite complex because
yeah,
you can do crap work if you don't give a shit about what you're drawing,
yeah,
and that is the truth.
yeah,
That
sure.
is the truth about everything.
Yeah, every work,
Because
everything.
well, yeah, that's right. Because I mean, you do your best. There's a certain degree of professionalism and craftsmanship that you have to apply to anything you're doing, and and you always do that. But it will depend on how you're feeling about life. It will depend upon whether you care about the character you're doing. Um, for instance, I was asked to do the Hulk once, the Incredible Hulk, and I did it a couple of times. Well, actually, okay. The 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 example I'm t telling you about is when I was removed from doing Night Raven. This is a long story, so I'm not going to go into all it. But anyway, I was removed from doing this story called Night Raven um, a long time ago, and because they still wanted me to keep me employed on something, I was asked to do the Hulk because the Marvel UK were doing original um, British produced Hulk stories. The from layouts by Paul Neary. Paul Neary, who became Marvel UK editor at the time and was doing layouts for the Hulk. Now, for a start, I didn't like doing work to anybody else's layouts, so that was bad from the very beginning. Secondly, I didn't really care much about the Hulk as a character, and and I wasn't feeling good about being pushed on to doing the Incredible Hulk when I shouldn't have been taken off Night Raven. Okay, so that's the situation. So those three things combined to make me not like doing the Hulk, right? So I ended up not doing very good work on that. Now that's kind of obvious. I did the best I could. It's work, it's craftsmanlike, and people who sometimes see it say, "Oh well, this is okay, it's okay." Yeah, but it's not me. It's like some other person, right?
Yeah,
So. So that was one example. But when I was asked to do Incredible Hulk for some annuals, I don't know whether you're familiar with that. Are you familiar with the annuals that we have in England?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, where they're sort of like giving us gifts at Christmas.
yeah,
They're
exactly.
about
Yeah,
TV shows and stuff like
yeah,
that.
we
Right,
don't have in Italy, but yeah,
but you're
we
familiar with it. Okay, you're familiar
yeah.
with that concept. All right. Well, when I was asked to do those, that was fine because, I had the freedom to not work on anybody's layouts. And, I enjoyed that. There was lots of fun. There was lots of fun. So I didn't dislike the character, on that basis. It was just that, you know, things that you feel, situations you're in will always affect um, whether you do anything really good or not. And but on V, for instance, uh, the early stages of V, we didn't know what we were doing. Neither Alan nor myself. We were making up as we went along. Alan, there was no big game plan with V for Vendetta. We were just asked to create this character, and we did something, and it was all made up as we went along. And at the beginning, it was all very theatrical. It was like a pantomime, and the characters we created didn't have any real existence until later. And if you look at the later work, the more we got into things, the more realistic it became, and the more important it became. Once we actually moved from the early pages into maybe chapter 11 or something, it all was becoming very, very serious. And I think that's when you actually start uh, drawing things and actually really believing in the characters in a major way. And that's when it happens. If you look at the early pages with all the characters up until, oh God, I can't specify. When you look at the early stuff, all those characters are kind of like stereotypes, you know, they're kind of stereotypes and they act like stereotypes. But the more you get into it, Finch becomes real. Armand becomes real when he's attacking his wife, you know, all that stuff. It really becomes real, and you believe those characters because we know they're like real people, and they become real symbols of repression and police corruption and uh, it all becomes more. So when that happens, you actually end up in that world, and I think that's that's the early stuff becomes. You actually look back on it and think, yeah, that's not so good. Because it gets you actually are aware that you've moved from something that is like a stereotypical pantomime into something that is realistic. And when you actually end up with Valerie Page or Evie in jail, fuck, you can't go back from that. That is like you're really getting into something really really dark. So
But I think that this is a part of the creating process still, and it's amazing on this for the freedom that you have, and really when we say the the limit is your imagination because it's really on that. And yeah, I think that your work, especially before Vendetta, was I think one of the first comics I have ever read in my life with the Watchmen and Mouse, free
mm,
masterpiece, free incredible masterpiece that maybe
mm,
I don't understand it when I was a child. I read it multiple times during the years, and yeah, that are still important today. Are the best, are important, are fundamental, and are free, uh, creatively and intellectually speaking. So it's it's amazing on this, and we don't see always. Maybe especially in this kind of times of years, is creativity. I don't know. Is living the best, especially with AI and all the kind of internet stuff. It's not it's not like this. We have all the opportunities, but maybe we lost something because with internet is always more easy, more fast, more new. But maybe this is not always the best thing to do.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope all the things that you I mean all the things that that you that you saw when you were a kid and you still see and you get more out of now carry on
Yeah,
because I don't know how many of those books are going or any because I mean you're not in Texas, but in Texas they are taking reams of books out of the
yeah,
libraries.
yeah,
They're banning fucking
yeah. They
books
ban.
left, right, and center. I don't know
Yeah,
whether that happened in Italy. I mean, you have
from our
you have,
part.
yeah, you have a a special government now, but
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
there you go. And
yeah,
I hope that all those things will
yeah,
stay around.
yeah,
But that's that. The thing is, how many people will feel free to write
yeah,
these books or draw these books anymore if they're not going to be actually available to the public or they'll be
yeah,
banned or shit like that. So we might be, as I say, with Germany in the 30s, the
yeah,
spectre of Germany in the 30s is hanging over us like a black ghost
yeah,
over the entire fucking universe right now. And we've all got to try and hope that that's not going to be hanging around all the time.
yeah. We hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking about we are on the last questions. Talking about your relationship with Mr. Moore. John Higgins says that he met him at a pub because he said that all the important people for his work and his career, he met him in a pub, casually in a pub, talking about the interest, talking about the hobbies, the works that they have done. You, how you met physically Mr. Moore, and if it's true still today that the best link with people, we met each other, you see his work, say, okay, that's good. Maybe we can collaborate. That maybe in this digital era we lost it, that kind of human exchange. Or
Well, I met Alan by accident, really, through when I was working on Doc 2 magazine.
yeah,
I was doing all the short stories in Doc 2 magazine. I never
hmm,
did Doc 2 stories. I
okay,
was doing all the stories that were the backup stories about the monsters. I'm sure you know some of this.
yeah,
But
Dr. Who, yeah,
I was doing all the stories about Cybermen and Ice
hmm,
Warriors and all that stuff. And the guy who was writing most of those stories was a guy called Steve Moore, a really, really great British comics writer who actually was a mate of Alan's and taught Alan how to draw comics. And so I was doing all those stories with Steve Moore. And I used to, if I had any questions about the story that I was drawing, I would phone Steve and say, "Hey, what about this? What about that?"
yeah,
And when Alan was given his first story. I think it was the first story he was given for to do for Doctor Who magazine, something called Black Legacy. I had some question on it, and I phoned up Alan in the same way I was phone up Steve and say, "Hey, Alan, hi, yeah, I see you're doing this new story, blah blah blah. I got this question, blah blah blah." Anyway, it turned out we were having this chat that Alan, I knew Alan in a sense already
No.
because Alan was working on the same fanzine that I used to. Alan used to write articles for the same fanzine that I used to supply illustrations for. This was a fanzine right in the beginning of the 70s called Shadow.
Yeah.
And I used to do illustrations for it because every pro, a lot of the pros who actually end up in comics, before they become pros, they are supplying illustrations and stuff to fanzines. Barry Windsor Smith did the same thing. Steve
Yeah.
Parker, everybody did the same.
Yeah.
And so I was doing these illustrations, and Alan said to me, "Hey, I remember you. You were in Shadow," and I didn't remember him from working on these fanzines. I said, "Oh, okay, really?" Yeah, he said I used to write these articles for Shadow. Anyway, so that's how we kind of met in a kind of sense. Um, and then the point is that when I worked with Alan, and then I started working with him on the Doctor Who stories. And then you have to remember, and it may well be the situation that John was talking about, meeting in the pub,
Yeah.
because at the time, at around this time, there were British conventions, and there were also meetings of comics guys at pubs that were around Westminster. Westminster used to have these comic marts where people who were interested in comics used to get together and blah blah blah. I won't go into all that. But all the pros, all the guys who were pros at the time and who were not pros would all get together in a pub around Westminster, and we'd all be talking to each other, and that's where we'd all socialise. So I think that's probably where I got socialising with Alan, and John maybe got socialising with Alan. All the guys, a lot of the guys working on 2000 AD at the time, we were all there, and it was a great little kind of networking thing. And so that's basically how I got to know Alan, and I got on with him very well. And I like working with him. He was a brilliant writer. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
what can you say? I mean, he's like
Incredible.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got to work with him, and then knew him, and then of course after Doctor Who, uh, I knew how good he was, and that's what led me to ask him to take part um, on the V for Vendetta project, which at that time was not called V for Vendetta, could have been anything, but so that's what happened there. But I mean, there was at that time, that particular time, there was a very strong social bond amongst all the creators. It has to be said that the 2000 AD guys used to have their own little get together. So they would meet in a
Okay.
pub, afterwards on regular basis. But they were kind of separate. I always saw them as like separate.
Okay.
Um, the from us and from me, because I never went to those because I was never employed by those people. Um, but the thing is, there was a very strong social bond amongst all those guys, and I personally think that if the British publishers had enough creative drive and input, the British industry could have used all that talent to make their own um, and very impressive industry. They didn't. That's why everybody who was very creative at the time in English comics went to America
yeah,
because the British industry had not they had not the courage or the creative concept to believe that they could form their own industry to actually match the US industry because they had the talent. Everybody who ended up going to America and enhancing the American industry, which of course was strong in itself, all those guys could have stayed in England, in Britain, but they didn't because there was more money, more opportunity to develop and grow in the US. So that's why everybody went there at the end of the day, which is kind of sad in a way, but that's the way things happen.
Sir, I have to left the interview because I have two little girl that have a need of your dad.
Oh yeah,
So,
you can't stay too long.
so thank you so much for your time. It's a very pleasure listen to your story, and thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah. So, talking about uh, even for me, the last question. So, first of all, new project,
I have no new projects. The only
no
thing
new
I'm
project.
doing now is which I hope you may know something about,
Yeah,
which is Aces Weekly. I just
yeah,
publish Aces Weekly. That's all I do.
yeah.
I haven't drawn anything or written anything since like 2012,
Okay, yeah,
which was Valley of Shadows in Aces Weekly Volume 1. And I don't intend to do anything else. I mean, I am in a very privileged position of publishing some of the greatest comics artists uh, and writers from around the planet um, in volumes. We're up to 78, volume 78 now,
yeah,
and every volume has six stories or shorts uh, of 21 pages up to 150 pages, including extras, sketches, plots, shit like that. And they're from everywhere. They're from Italy, they're from Argentina,
yeah,
they're from Paraguay, they're from Spain, they're from everywhere. And the work is incredible. And when I talk about art being an adventure, you will not see you will not see a wider differentiation of
yeah,
fantastic talent throughout that crowd. It's amazing. And uh, I obviously need to tell you, if any of your viewers and listeners
yeah,
who don't know it, that the best way to go there is through this web address, which is
yes, yeah,
www.acesweekly.co.uk. It's that simple. And you go there and you see what we have. There's free samples, so you can see some of what we've done. And it's cheap. You can subscribe. You get ongoing volumes of up to 150 pages, including extras, for just £1 a week. That's like what is that? What is that in
Europe.
£1 a week? It's like, and it's £1 a week in any currency, so you
Yeah,
can join in any currency,
yeah,
and that gets you volumes constantly coming through to you, and uh, that's every Monday in 7 parts. Well, you figure it all out, chicken. But
Yeah.
it's like an
I
endless.
link all I link all of this
Yes,
on this
okay,
kind of stuff. Yeah,
right, okay, okay.
yeah.
Well, so now you know. Now you know.
They know. They know. Yeah. And yeah, and it's amazing because uh, maybe internet sometimes and all this digital world help to connect on this. So easier,
Well, I'm glad. Well, we tried,
easier.
but let me tell you, sir, our biggest problem is that people love paper,
Yeah,
and people
yeah, yeah.
love paper, and
Love.
our biggest problem is that
Especially in
people.
comics. Especially in comics.
Well,
Com
only
yeah,
comics, but
yeah,
only
because
comics,
book.
only comics, because Kindle
Yeah, exactly.
successfully has produced
Yeah,
lots of great, well-selling
yeah,
prose works,
yeah,
but people do not want to move from paper when it comes to,
yeah,
and it's like it is killing the art form
yeah,
because listen, the price of distribution and the price of printing and the price of reprographic
yeah,
in comics is not going to go down.
yeah, yeah.
And
Always,
the
always up.
only way to maintain the future of great comics is the simple task of putting a page of comics on a screen.
Yeah,
That's all we have to, that's all I do. That's
yeah,
what all the Aces Week
yeah,
does. We put a page of comics on screen instead of on paper.
yeah,
It saves costs. There's no distribution costs. It's cheaper. It's easier. You just click instead of turning the page, which is not a big problem. You don't have to get up out of your seat and do any shit like that.
yeah.
This is like, and let me tell you something. The way AI is going and the way storytelling is going, if
Mhm.
you don't hang on and preserve comics the way they are, in the way they are, the panel to panel, balloon to balloon,
Yeah,
the caption to caption, in the way we love them, if you don't preserve it by getting it on the internet and on the web, it's gonna die. I'm
yeah.
telling you, it is gonna die. So if you really care about the future of comics, please, please check out Aces Weekly and see what we're doing because it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, thank you so much. I know that sometimes you come to Italy, maybe some convention. When is the last time that you come to Italy?
Well, the next time I'm coming is, I think, is in June, which
Yeah,
is I'm not sure exactly where. I think it's up north in Italy. I'm not sure. Oh,
North
I
Italy.
can tell you. I will let you know.
Let me know because I am in North Italy, maybe near Milan. I am
Oh,
near
okay.
Milan. So
All right.
let me know.
All right. I
Maybe
will.
we can meet. I surely pay
So
the respect.
we'll share some wine.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of
The
course.
unfortunate things of this that I can see you and I can see you what you are drinking right now, or eating, or
Oh,
maybe
you
both.
know that. Yeah, you can hear it. But you didn't see me eating chicken. So that's it. You see, you didn't see me eating chicken. See,
Yeah, okay, okay.
I saved you from that.
But yeah, red wine, I think.
Yes, exactly. It is
Yeah,
actually. But I have to tell you, it's not Italian. I
it's
I
not
do like
Italian.
Italian, but this happens to be Cote d'Ivoire. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, okay, okay. No, it's not a problem because Mr. Higgins that we talked 2 weeks ago, so it's a fresh thing. Do the same thing but live with the camera. So they
Oh yeah.
say the same thing. I have to do this with eating and drinking red
Oh.
wine. That time was Italian.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. Okay.
yeah,
Grazie.
yeah.
Grazie.
It's not a problem. So let us know when you come to Italy that maybe we can meet.
Sure.
And thanks again for your time. So thank you. Really
It's
was
my. It's absolutely
honor.
my pleasure. Thank you.
It's an honor, sir. It's an
My
honor.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Grazie, grazie, grazie mille.
Grazie mille.